Thanks everybody for joining today. This is a DailyPay webinar. Hopefully you're in the right place. And we're calling this webinar How to Offer a DailyPay Benefit. As you may have seen in the sort of teaser video that I created for this webinar, we actually did this Q&A session in Las Vegas a few months ago at a conference called Connect CFO HR. And it was so well attended. It was standing room only. And there were so many hands that went up. I'm not sure we got to all of the questions in that session. So we started talking here internally, and we thought, well, if people couldn't attend live, maybe we could give people the chance to attend digitally. And here we are. We wanted to bring back Jenna because she was such a great representative of what the DailyPay benefit is about, and I think her experience really represents the sort of true experience you can expect if you sign up for a DailyPay and start offering it to your employees. And so today we're going to go through just some quick intros, and then my colleague Josh Jackson, who's our product marketing director, is going to take us through just a quick overview of the product and platform itself, really talking at a high level of the benefits. There are some people on this call who are already using the DailyPay platform, but there are some people here who are not yet familiar with it, and so we just want to make sure everybody's sort of on equal footing in terms of what our product is and what it does. And from there, Josh will only spend about 10 minutes on that, and then we'll transition into talking with Jenna. Jenna will tell you a little bit about her business, Ashley Manor, her position there, and the process that they went through in looking for a DailyPay benefit, how they decided on using DailyPay, and what sort of results they've seen so far. And at the end, we'll go through Q&A with the audience, and I'll remind you that we're going to take questions at any point during this webinar, but we're going to reserve about the last 15 to 20 minutes to answer those questions. So if you ask a question, we'll record it and we will come back to it, but we won't be taking them in real time just to kind of keep us moving on the timeline that we do have here. So feel free to ask questions at any point. Rest assured, we'll record them and we'll get to them at the end of this. Last thing here is, wanted to just encourage you to ask a question. Sometimes people feel like they have a question and maybe it's an obvious question. There are no wrong questions to be asked here, and so even if you have the smallest of questions, if you ask a question today, we will send you one of our shiny white DailyPay water bottles. You can see that here pictured. Who is that model? That's, boy, that is a good-looking model there. So in any event, if you do ask a question today, we'll send you a water bottle, and we'll probably just send you a water bottle just for attending, but we do hope you're an active participant today and let us know what you want to know about DailyPay. So all that being said, we're going to get into this now. Like I said, Josh is going to start us off. He's the product marketing director here at DailyPay. Jenna will come on after him. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Josh to give you just a sort of quick overview of DailyPay.
Thanks a lot, Carl. And before I sort of dive into the details of the product, I think what I'll do is it's important to understand the context of the product and the market that our product serves. So I'll start there, and then I'll dive into just sort of a brief overview of the product. But I'll try to keep my comments brief as Jenna's sort of the main course today. But in the spirit of sort of getting everyone on a level set backdrop, there are really two distinct user groups that we see who have really gravitated towards daily payment benefits. And the first one is, we call it ERIN here at DailyPay. It's employees requiring income now. And there are about 58 million working Americans who are struggling to pay their bills on time. And this is the demographic group that we call ERIN. There are really two options for ERINs if they find themselves in need of cash in between paydays. They can either incur an overdraft fee, which generally costs about $30 on average, or access credit through a payday loan, which typically we see a 391% APR for payday loans. We find, particularly in the payday loan space, that 91% of these folks are repeat borrowers. And so these forms of credit are not really advantageous to the user. And these are the users that we see using DailyPay benefits in order to meet their financial obligations on time, and who are really using it to get by paycheck to paycheck. The second group that we generally see, we call them Maggies, millennials and Gen Z who get instant everything. This was actually not sort of the demographic that we originally intended when we designed the product would gravitate towards it, but it turned out to be one that really resonated. And that represents about 35% of the workforce are millennials and 5% are Gen Z. And these are users who really value certain things with their relationship with their employer. Transparency, affirmation, and instant. Transparency about their job roles, about their career paths, their company's policies, affirmation of not just from their day-to-day work, but also societal contributions of their organizations and of their individual performance within those organizations. And they require instant everything about their pay, about their employee benefits, about feedback that they have on their jobs, on their job performance. And they're really the group that has grown up with the ability to stream a movie on Netflix on demand, to browse music on Spotify and get any song that they want at their fingertips. And so both of these distinct groups are groups that we've seen interacting with daily payment benefits. And so we really designed the product, like I said, a little bit more with Aaron in mind, but with both of these groups in mind. And so that sort of informed the way that we designed the product. So what is DailyPay, and what does it provide to its users? DailyPay provides basically three things to its users: full visibility into their available finances, open access to earned but unpaid wages, and continuous full and instant coverage. Now, what does this mean? For full visibility into available finances, this is really showing the budgeting power of a tool like DailyPay. In order to budget effectively, employees need full visibility into what they've earned. And for this reason, we allow our partners to present to their employees, our users, an available balance of up to 100% of their earned but unpaid wages. This enables our users to plan ahead for the rest of their work week and determine whether they have covered their financial obligations, in which case they can wait until payday to receive their full paycheck, or whether there is a shortfall and then they need to draw on their available balance. So that really gets us into open access to earned but unpaid wages. So we designed DailyPay to give the employee the greatest amount of control over their financial situation. And we don't restrict employees to specific methods of payment or patterns of usage. Instead, we allow instant and next day transfers of funds that they have earned, that an employee has earned, to any destination account the employee prefers. Lastly, this benefit should be made available, we feel, on a continuous, full, and instant basis. And so what we mean by that really is that cash needs can arise unexpectedly. For example, there could be a medical emergency where suddenly there's a need for funds that was unanticipated earlier in the pay period and up until that point. So we feel that the product should be accessible 24/7, 365, and that's the product that we have offered to the market, including weekends and holidays. Again, this product should provide as close to 100% of an employee's earned pay as possible, since in emergencies, employees may need to tap into all of their funds or close to all of their earned funds up until that point in the pay period. And so for these reasons, DailyPay was designed to provide this coverage 24/7, 365, and instantly, so that users can tap into their balance within seconds if needed. DailyPay was designed to provide all of these features through a simple and transparent user interface. Really, this is what our product design looks like. We've tried to make it as simple as possible, and replicate the experience of going up to an ATM and taking funds out. So there's no fee unless an employee logs in and actually takes funds from their account. But when an employee will log in, this is the user interface they'll see. It will present to them an available balance, and they'll have the option to choose any amount that they would like to transfer, and they can transfer either instantly or next business day. The key points here are that every employee can access this product. They can access up to 100% of earned wages and access it instantly. Now, lastly, there are benefits of this to the enterprise, but we designed the product to have as minimal change to existing processes for the enterprise as possible. So what do we mean by that? We don't require our employers to fund the amounts that are being drawn. DailyPay provides the funding behind all of these advances before payday. And that also means that the payroll processing can be completed in the same timing and without disruption to the payroll team's ordinary processes. We typically see benefits to the enterprise of implementing a DailyPay benefit. We see an average 41% reduction in turnover for employees who have adopted a DailyPay benefit, which translates generally to a mid-teens reduction in turnover for the overall workforce of our product partners. We also see a 1.9 times the number of applicants for jobs that are advertising a DailyPay benefit, and we see meaningful improvement to employee engagement as measured by eNPS scores and workforce productivity measurements. So with that, I'll actually turn it back to Carl. I think it ties in well with the rest of the discussion with Jenna around kind of how does DailyPay interact with the business.
Great. Thanks, Josh. All right. Let's see here. Real quick before we go into the Q&A with Jenna, want to remind everybody that if you do have any questions, feel free to ask them in your GoToWebinar control panel. There should be a section with questions. We'll be taking questions at any point, so you're welcome to ask those. And we'll hold those questions until sort of the last 15 minutes for the webinar. Also want to give you a quick update. I did some research while Josh was talking, and it looks like it would take me 11 days to ride my bike to Vancouver, Washington, which means that is the farthest that anyone's tuning in, and you win the first water bottle prize of the webinar here. So Spokane, you would be 10 days away. Phoenix, 9 days away, just if anybody's a bike rider here. Perfect. Thanks again, Josh. Appreciate it. So hopefully that gives everybody here who might not be familiar with the product a little better sense of what it is and what it does. But to give you some real-world context, we've invited Jenna, the Chief Financial Officer for Ashley Manor, to join this webinar and talk through a little bit about her business and about what the process was like for her and her team finding a DailyPay benefit. So real quick, Jenna is the Chief Financial Officer of Ashley Manor Senior Living and Auburn Crest Hospice, their sister company. During her tenure with the company, she's led the accounting team through 121% revenue growth. She's also led the team through an acquisition of a Utah-based home health and hospice business. And she's also overseen the startup of 2 additional lines of business through their ownership buyouts. She's always looking for ways to connect her accounting team to the company purpose, and under her guidance, they've been able to implement meaningful changes that have increased efficiency, accuracy, and transparency while decreasing company costs. And outside of work, Jenna enjoys spending time with her husband and 2 kids, playing tennis and volleyball, riding bikes, okay, so some people here also ride bikes long distances, and bouldering too. So Jenna, welcome. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks. Happy to be here.
Yeah, brilliant. So as I mentioned at the top of the conversation here, and for anybody who might have joined us midway through, we sort of went through this conversation and some of these questions at an event a few months ago, and we didn't really do a great job of capturing images from that event, but we did have at least one picture of the title slide from the event that proves that it happened. but the rest of the time everybody was very busy taking audience questions and making sure that everything went off without a hitch. And so we're sort of revisiting that conversation from Las Vegas. Maybe, I don't know if anybody here was at that show or not. It was the Connect CFO HR Summit. But the conversation was just really well received, and it seemed like there was a lot of curiosity in the room. So we're back here again to just kind of walk through your process and take everybody through that conversation again to give, again, some real world context. So, I mean, Josh walked us through the features and the benefits, and that's all well and good. But I think the people who are here want to hear from someone who's gone through the process of evaluating and implementing DailyPay and understand what it was like for you. So I first want to just give you the chance to introduce Ashley Manor and make sure everybody understands what your business is and what it is you do. So maybe for those who aren't familiar, you could tell us a little bit more about Ashley Manor, the organization.
Thanks. So we are an assisted living company specializing in memory care. And so what that looks like is we have small home-like environments, and we have about 60 of them covering 3 states in the Northwest. And it was founded and currently still owned and operated by like the founder. Sorry, so that's funny. And it was started in 1996, and it was originally started because the founder of the company couldn't find a place for his uncle to live who had Alzheimer's. And so his uncle kept getting kicked out of facilities because there wasn't anything quite appropriate for someone with Alzheimer's disease, and so he started up Ashley Manor.
Brilliant. How large is the company then now? How is your workforce comprised? How many employees do you have? How many people there are? How would you kind of sort of describe the breakdown of your workforce there?
We have about 600 employees, and this is just speaking to the assisted living side. So we have about 600 employees. About 80% of them are entry-level caregivers, and on average, our average employee has been with us, taking into consideration all employees across all positions. They're typically, on average, they're with us a little over 2 years. Our average caregiver has been with us a year and a half. They're speaking to, like, I guess more like the age. They're actually, it's a little bit surprising looking at the numbers because the average age of an employee that works with us is mid-30s. And that even in our caregiver demographic, they're mid-30s as well.
I see. Okay. Do you have a sense, too, Jenna, I don't know, how does that compare with other organizations that you see in that industry? Do you feel like those numbers are kind of the norm, or is your setup, your workforce in some way a little bit different from the normal organization?
No, it's pretty typical of the assisted living industry.
Got it. Very good. I guess I was curious then, so can you talk a little bit about some of the challenges your company faces when it comes to recruiting the ideal employee in that sort of workforce range that you described?
So we do have a fair number of employees, even though our average age is mid-30s, we do have a fair number that are looking for kind of their first position, their first job. And so we are competing, I guess whether it's their first job or not, we're competing typically for that caregiver role with like fast food industries, because from a compensation standpoint, there isn't a big difference in regards to what we're willing to pay them. And especially over the last few years, as the labor market's gotten even tighter, the wage difference has decreased drastically. And so the way that we're having to try and recruit is we're trying to appeal to people who are looking not only for a job, but looking to have an impact and make a difference. And so that is part of what leads to us that age, that average age in the mid-30s, is because a lot of the people that we end up attracting are those that have had some jobs where they just, they go to fast food and they're there getting a paycheck, and maybe now they're ready for something that's going to be a little different, where it's going to provide more meaning in their lives as well as have a greater impact on their community. So from a recruiting standpoint, it's tough because we have, like I said, we're pretty entry-level positions. Most of our workforce is inexperienced, and a lot of them, this is their first caregiving job. And being in their mid-30s, a lot of them have families that they're trying to support in the process. Did I answer your question?
No, that does. And I think we see that, we've seen that in some industry articles, that it is challenging for home care businesses to compete with the QSR restaurant down the street, or another local business that has maybe, I don't know, they may be offering higher wages. And how do you really connect with them? How do you connect with these potential caregivers on the difference they're going to make in the world, and bring them to your business over somebody who might just be paying more down the road? Before we go too much further into the workforce breakdown, we did have one question here from Katun, who was asking, curious, how many payroll specialists do you have processing payroll? So I guess I was going to take a step back and just talk a little bit. Maybe you could talk a little bit about how your team, the payroll team or your finance team there, is organized.
So I have an entry-level payroll clerk, and she is full-time, and she spends half of her time processing payroll. We do 2 payrolls a month, and that is half of her job. I don't know if that provided enough detail.
Seems like it did. But I think that's maybe an important point. So right now you're paying, the pay cycle is bi-weekly, or is that accurate to say it's bi-weekly or?
Semi-monthly.
Semi-monthly, sorry. Have you looked through the usage for, well, we'll get to that in a second, hold on. I had one other question here that came in from Eric, who was asking, and maybe this is just a general industry question, but Jenna, do you have an idea of the average wage for your caregivers, and what percentage of your, well, let's start with this. What's the average wage of your caregivers? Are you at liberty to share that information?
I ran a bunch of numbers. For some reason, that wasn't one that I pulled, but it's around 12, like between 12 and 13.
Okay.
Dollars an hour.
Very good.
Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. And Eric, if you're still really curious about that, we can always follow up with you afterwards, and if you need something more specific than that. And I guess this actually. Go ahead, Jenna. Yeah.
I was just going to make sure to say we operate in Idaho, Colorado, and Oregon. So of course that's going to be different than if we operate like in California or New York, where you are.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, that's an important point of differentiation. And real quick, Josh, this is probably a question best answered for you. Sandra was asking here if there's a minimum or maximum number of employees that a company needs to add to a DailyPay benefit.
Yeah, thanks. I'll take that one, and I think I'll compare it with, I think there was another question around whether you needed to have a specific payroll provider. Someone was asking, do you need to have ADP in order to implement DailyPay? So we work with any payroll provider and any payroll system. And to the point, to Sandra's question, we generally work with companies of 1,000 employees or more. However, if we have a direct integration with a payroll provider like ADP, for example, we are on the ADP marketplace, and we do have those data feeds set up already. We can go lower. So if there's a company that is lower than 1,000 employees, but we do have a direct sort of integration with their payroll system, we are willing to work with them because we already have sort of the data feeds put together. So if you're not sure if DailyPay already works with your payroll system, you can reach out to them or just reach out to us at DailyPay, and we'll let you know what the setup is. But the general, for a new implementation, we basically, require 1,000 employees.
Jenna, what payroll system are you guys using there at Ashley Manor?
We actually just have we use timekeeping software, and then we integrate that with our accounting system, which is Sage. And the timekeeping company that we utilize is a pretty small company, actually out of Washington State, and it's called Sundial Time.
I see. Okay. What was the process like? Well, let's start from the beginning here. So what were some of the lead indicators that you were looking at or your team was looking at when you started evaluating DailyPay benefits?
The biggest one that we were looking at that you guys kind of alluded to, or Josh alluded to in his presentation, was the turnover. So our turnover in healthcare in general, it's kind of notorious for having pretty high turnover. And like I said, most of our employees are entry-level positions, so again, they're tougher to retain because they're more likely to job hop to find another job that pays even a quarter or 50 cents more. So our turnover numbers were high, and we recognized all the costs associated with high turnover. And we had brainstormed and tried numerous other things to try and decrease that number with little to no impact. And so that was honestly the biggest trigger. Well, and then some secondary concerns we had were we were offering an internal advance program where employees could request an advance once a quarter, and my payroll team would process that for them, and we would charge them $15 fee per 100. And so I wanted to get away from that because I wanted my team to be focused more on what we need to do, which processing payroll and doing better at that. And so I wanted to eliminate that as well.
Just on the back of that, Jenna, it made me realize I didn't point out the user fees for using DailyPay, which are simply $1.99 if they want it next business day, or $2.99 if they want it instantly. That means within seconds. So I think that I don't want to confirm if this is what you're kind of getting at, Jenna, but DailyPay, since we're in the business of providing these earnings before payday, and we process millions of payments, we are able to kind of give that benefit of scale and pass on a cost benefit to employees. Is that what you were sort of getting at with that?
Yes. Yep.
So that it compares favorably. We've seen a number of our partners who have been able to utilize DailyPay as a way to replace paycheck advance, and that's another benefit. So thanks for pointing that out.
So Jen, after you started to go through some of the lead indicators, some of the challenges with turnover, and started evaluating options, it sounds like you actually tried some other creative solutions before you turned to a DailyPay benefit. Was there anything about DailyPay in particular that stuck out to you and your team that made us a front runner for a solution that you wanted to try?
Well, to be honest, it was pretty low risk, which accountants in general are probably kind of well known for being low risk. So for me, it was very attractive from that standpoint. And because it required very little investment from me and my team, and we just saw it as like this potential high reward. And so that was what made it really, really attractive for me and my team. Plus, of course, we had seen all the numbers, but I think probably like most people when they're searching, like in the hunt for any product, you see a lot of numbers that always look really attractive. So you tend to be fairly skeptical of all these benefits that are promised. And so that actually, I think for me, carried less weight because I figured, my apologies, but I figured a lot of it was just kind of salesmanship.
No apologies necessary. I think there's always a fair amount of skepticism that goes into any sort of sales conversation, right? And so what was the implementation process like then? So you said no risk and low time involvement seemed attractive. Can you talk a little bit about the process of getting your time roll and time management and payroll systems linked up with our platform?
Yeah, so we initially just had a couple conversations with DailyPay, and probably even the contract with DailyPay, at least at that time, I guess I don't know if it's different now, so hopefully I'm not creating some problem if it is different, but even the contract was like pretty simple and straightforward, which was, again, really attractive because it makes me nervous when I'm having to, I feel like, sign my life away. So I like that. So that process didn't take very long at all. And again, we weren't committing ourselves to really a whole lot. And so then once we got into implementation, we started last fall, and we started the conversations in August, and then September was when we had the time when we said we wanted to start implementing. And so I just had like an outside person that I worked with to create like the upload file, and we worked with a couple individuals at DailyPay to create the files to talk in between our timekeeping software, our Sage, and DailyPay. And so that process, it actually didn't take that much time. It probably took, I don't know, 2 or 3 hours of my time to work with my outside person to get that file created. For my outside person, I think it was between 5 and 10 hours to create those integration files. And then once we got that put together, that was pretty much it. And we rolled out to one of our states. Let's see. So it must have been, maybe I'm off a month, but we rolled out one state at a time, and we had all states live January 1st. So
okay,
it could have gone faster. It could have gone faster. Like I said, I'm really conservative when it comes to risk. I wanted to be really safe, make sure there were any errors. Well, it's given that there's going to be a few errors when implementing something new, especially company-wide. And we had very minimal problems. And the ones that we did have, we were able to quickly fix and mitigate. And so it's pretty seamless.
That's great. Yeah, I was going to ask about the rollout because there are a lot of times we work in a phased rollout approach. So that's helpful context. I think also helpful context is just reassuring everybody on the phone that we have not complicated our contract or sign-up process since you signed up. Everything is still the same. So you are not giving any sort of outdated information there. Let's see. So we had one question here. Katoon had a couple of implementation questions. I think we kind of just answered. I guess one question though was, Jenna, do you remember there being any issues or any hurdles that you had to work through? Anything that stuck out in your mind that was a challenge?
Like there were just a couple of glitches in the process. Like when we initially set up and went live with our first state, an email, like a welcome invite got sent to all of our employees rather than just the employees in that one state. And so we did have to just kind of like do a little bit of pullback on that, but it wasn't that big of a deal.
That sounds like something that should be brought up with marketing. So we'll make a note with the people in the room here. Email issues are usually our fault. Sorry about that. One quick question. I'm going to just go off on a tangent, and then Jenna, I'd like to talk about results. Jerry had a question here, and it was asking how long it takes for a new employee. This is a question I think Josh is suited to answer. The question is, how long does it take for a new employee to start seeing money available once they sign up with DailyPay? Is it after we close our payroll for them the first time when we upload our payroll journal?
Yeah, so this actually is something that, we can present an available balance to an employee as they sign up. But for a new employee, we typically, as soon as we have their information and they're coming through and we see that they're logging hours in their TMS system, and we have a sense of their gross pay rate, we can start to make the benefit available immediately. And the one thing is that until we have 3 pay periods worth of data, they may have a lower available balance until we sort of have a pay profile set up for them in our system, and that generally ramps up once we have the data. One remedy for that when you're launching a new program to existing employees is to provide that data, the 3 pay periods worth of data looking backwards, sort of in advance of launching the program. But I think the question that you had, Jerry, was for a new employee. What typically happens for a new employee is we'll make 50% of their earnings available to them at first, and then it'll ramp up to their full pay rate over sort of the next 3 pay periods.
And I want to just acknowledge one question. So Eric, I know you had a question here with regard to training for new caregivers, and I feel like that might be best answered over email. So I'm happy. I'll talk to Jenna offline after the webinar and see if she wants to link up with you just in terms of some of her feedback on how they train new caregivers. So we'll take that question offline. And continuing, you also had a question about working with ADP. So as Jenna mentioned, they are not using ADP, but I'd be happy to, or Josh, can also follow up with you after this and talk to you about the ADP process and how we work in conjunction with them and what that integration looks like. So we'll make a note to just get in touch with you when we wrap up here with regard to that. One last question, Jenna, before we go into some of the results. Josh, we do also have this other question from Jerry just talking about how do we handle employees who sign up with DailyPay but change their deposit account information? Is that something we can easily tackle here, or is that required?
Yeah, the short answer to that, Jerry, is that we have safeguards in place which allow us to detect, sort of changes in deposit information. I think we'll follow up with you sort of in more detail, to get all these answers to you. But the short answer is it's something that we're fully aware of, sort of as the way that our system is set up and can address accordingly. So we'll follow up with you sort of offline on that.
Elisa had a question too. I think we can just answer real quick here. She's asking if DailyPay provides go-live marketing materials for the employees. And we do, Elisa, we do have partnership managers here who will work with your team to help you get promotional materials together and out to the employees. And in some cases, we'll email all of your employees. We will work closely with you to get notifications out to your employees that the benefit is available and how they can take advantage of it once it is, whether that be handouts, flyers, handouts, or digital collateral. Jenna, let's talk a little bit about some of the results then. So we got this program up and running January of this year. Fully up and running, right? And this will probably answer some questions from Eric, who is asking what percentage of your caregivers now utilize DailyPay, and also how has this impacted your turnover percentage? So could you talk us through some of the results that you've seen since the program has been fully up and running now?
Yeah, I can't speak to the number of our caregivers that are utilizing it because I haven't drilled down to that degree, but we have about 150 employees that are utilizing DailyPay. And their average transfer amount, I don't know if that's interesting for anyone's benefit, but it's a little over $100. It's like $120. And let's see, I think I ran the number. There's about 900 transfers a month total that, at least over the last few months, that have been done. And then in regards to turnover, now I can't guarantee that all of this is attributable to DailyPay, but our turnover numbers at the end of 2018 to now through April, because I don't have our May numbers yet, but we've seen a net turnover decrease of 25%. And I feel like it can probably pretty strongly be attributed to DailyPay because, at least from a company administration standpoint, we haven't implemented any other programs targeting turnover during that time. That's been the only change that we've made.
Interesting. Okay. I guess I'm always curious, has there been any qualitative feedback? Has anyone either on your management team or an employee stop by to give you feedback on how the program works for them?
I've talked to a couple employees that have needed to utilize it, and one of them, she was in the process of buying a house, so she was one of those where it was an emergency situation where, of course, when you're buying a house, when you get to close, of course something's changed, right? And so she was in that situation where last minute she suddenly needed a few more $100s to put down, and so she utilized DailyPay, and so she was so grateful to be able to utilize it. And then my payroll clerk, she says that she regularly gets thanked that we implemented DailyPay. And for anyone else that works in payroll or accounting, it's not very often that you have your accounting team getting thanked really for much of anything. So that really says a lot.
Yeah, I feel like maybe the thank yous are a bit more sarcastic before DailyPay, and then after they're a bit more sincere.
Yeah,
that's wonderful, though. Thanks for sharing that. I guess, have there been any other key takeaways for you, or any other sort of bits of advice you might offer to someone here on the webinar with us if they're considering a DailyPay benefit? Any sage wisdom you want to impart on everyone here?
Oh man, no pressure. I still, I guess, have some of my similar opinion where I was really skeptical of utilizing DailyPay, but I saw it as really low risk, potential high reward. And for us, it's really paid off in a big way, especially where as an executive team, we've been really frustrated where we haven't been able to have the impact on decreasing that turnover like we've wanted. And this was a relatively easy way for us to decrease that turnover while simultaneously providing a great benefit to our employees. I did run the numbers on where we only allowed quarterly advances. And it's not a huge difference, but in 2018, we charged $7,000 in administrative fees for people who took advances. So that was only 172 advances just in 2018, whereas now with DailyPay, if they were on DailyPay in 2018, that would have only cost $500. And so just realizing that with these entry-level positions where they're only making $12 an hour, if we're able to save our employees thousands of dollars, I can walk away feeling really, really good about that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I feel like my question board is lighting up here, making sure we don't leave without talking about recruiting. So we've got a question here from Gregory asking, how does DailyPay impact Ashley Manor's recruiting and attracting new employees? And also a question here, do you know if you've incorporated DailyPay into your new hire ads or job listings in any way?
So we've been a little slow getting around to that, but since I did the presentation in Vegas, we've actually been a lot more on top of making sure it's part of all of our ads or job postings that we have. So it's just been over the last 2 months now that we've been utilizing it and advertising it in our job listings. And I don't have any quantitative, any numbers, but my HR team, my recruiter, she's definitely seen an increase in the number of applications that we're getting.
Interesting. Okay. Um, do you know, I guess, that's interesting. I think it might be worth following up to. Maybe we can even do a follow-up to this after you've gone down the road a little bit further with implementing some of this in the recruiting strategy. Because I think it'd be interesting to also learn whether advertising the fact that you offer your employees daily pay helps with new business. For example, people who are thinking about working with Ashley Manor know that they have a more engaged workforce because they're backed by these really creative benefits that keep them around longer, and give them more incentive to stay engaged on the job. So maybe we'll check in with you after that's been going a little bit and see if there's any other results to report there.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Jenna, I guess I was also curious, there might be some people in the audience here who want to be a champion for a daily pay benefit, but know that they've got a group of executives that they have to convince that this is a good idea. Was there anything that you felt like helped win over colleagues when you were in that consideration phase that you presented to them, or anything that you brought back to them that you felt like the green light went on for everybody and they immediately saw the benefit and everybody bought into it?
So particularly with the CEO of my company, he's definitely numbers oriented, as am I to a fair degree, of course. And so I knew that the approach to take with him would be presenting the numbers. So I did share a lot of the data that DailyPay had to present, and then I also showed the estimated cost to me and my team, both in number of hours as well as like dollar cost. And then I said that I and my team, and I had already identified people on my team who were willing to put in the time and how we were going to work it into our schedule. So I'd already kind of put together that project template, so that he had a really good idea of what it was going to look like in the implementation. And of course, I guess for him, the other big thing is risk, especially as an owner. And so I made sure to have our attorney look through that contract and acknowledge and articulate to the CEO the minimal risk that he would experience as an owner.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. I mean, that sounds like data. If you come ready with it, it makes a strong argument for sure. I know. So we're going to get ready to kind of wrap it up here, and I would like to just I would like to apologize to everybody on the call here, because I noticed that there's an error on the slide that I've been displaying for the last few minutes, and so I do apologize for that. Jenna is not the CEO and co-founder of DailyPay, and her email address is not jasonlee@DailyPay. So my apologies, but we will, if you do have questions for Jenna, we will be sending out some follow-up emails, and we'll make it possible for you to get those questions through to her. Eric, I saw you had the question about training. We'll certainly help you get that question answered. I would also just like to give a quick shout out to Gregory. I know you had some questions here about company size and franchisees, and would really like to just have a follow-up conversation with you after the webinar and talk a little bit more about how that works. So I'll be sure to get in touch with you there. Jenna, any parting thoughts or anything else before we get ready to wrap this up?
I don't think so. I think that's about all I got.
Very good. Josh, anything else?
Nope, I think we're good.
Wonderful. Everyone, thanks so much for joining. And Jenna, thank you very much for all of your help, both in Las Vegas with the presentation originally and here on the web. You're just the embodiment of such a great partner for our company, and we're glad to be partnered with you and helping bring this change about. So thank you so much for everything there. And thank you to everybody who attended today. As a part of your attendance, you'll be getting a copy of our Turnover in Healthcare ebook that we published just recently. You'll also, if you would like a water bottle and you'd like to send me your mailing address, I'll be sure to mail a water bottle out to you. It's the summertime. Everybody should stay hydrated. And finally, if there are any other follow-up questions, we'll send you a copy of this webinar recording. So if you want to show this to anybody else at your company, or if you want to go back over any of the finer points that we did cover, you'll have that. Jenna, just so you know, some people are in here on the question panel saying thank you for your time. So again, thank you very much. And thank you again, everybody. We're going to be doing more of these DailyPay webinars, so keep an eye out for updates from me and the team. And if there is anyone joining the call who's already a DailyPay partner, I also want to give a quick preview that we are going to, in the near future, start doing some more partner-specific webinars that will talk a little bit more in detail about implementation and usage and training. And so keep an eye out for that as well. That should be coming down the line. So Katrina will definitely get a water bottle out to you. I see your request here. We got you covered. So that's it. Thank you again, everybody. We really enjoyed it, and we hope you all have a great day, no matter how far away you're tuning in today. Cheers. Have a great day.